Morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. This is Dr. Ron Kaiser with the Growing Older with Enthusiasm podcast. And we're moving now into talking a little more about coaching, my specific approach to coaching, as well as coaching in general. And so, without further ado, want to bring on board my co-host, Neil Haley. Neil, it's nice to see you, and looking forward to another healthy, hopefully robust discussion.
Absolutely. And you know what? You think about growing older with enthusiasm, the importance, our percentage of the country that are 65 and older is gigantic. And so many people are needing this information. And especially when I saw another coach that kind of does something similar to you, talked about at age 50, you have to, and I'm 51, you have to really start to think about these things because before you know it, you're going to be 65. Before you know it, if you do the right things, you're going to be 80. And then before you know it, it's 100. That last half century take is faster than the first half century, isn't it, Dr. On?
Yeah, I think it's the second half century, not necessarily the last half
Oh,
century.
last
Hopefully we'll be
second. Okay,
doing
second.
this and talking about the third half century at
Yeah.
some point.
Oh, we are.
But yeah, I think it's only realistic to recognize when you're 50, you're closer to 65 than being close to 30, and some of the things, again, I'm very big on prevention. So some of the things that you do when you're 50 and even earlier are the things that can really make a major difference in your quality of life when you get to be 65 or 75 or 85, which are all milestones that I've passed already.
All right. Let's go to it, Dr. Ron.
Okay, well, again, our topic today is coaching. And what I'd like to say to start with is I'm not one of those people who says that no matter where you are in the space of your life, everybody needs a coach. Maybe over the course of your lifetime, there are times when everybody needs a coach, but not everybody needs a coach at this point in time. The ones who need it can really benefit from it. But I like to think in terms of focusing, first of all, on what your goals are. Are there particular things that you want to improve? And I think most of our listeners have heard me say that it's really important to have goals, to have a plan for the month ahead, the year ahead, the 5 years ahead, the 10 years ahead, no matter what age you are. And uh, you should always have things that you're looking forward to achieving, because I think that's what keeps you active, healthy, positive, and so on. So I like to think in terms of goals. So, as again, you may be aware, I've developed goal achieving psychotherapy based on the fact that I think goals are so important. So, I encourage people to sit down, and I'll be glad to discuss this with you on an individual basis, but sit down, write down what your goals are for the next, let's start with a year from now. I think that's going to be broken down to shorter time frames, but how do you want to be different? What are your goals for the year? Now, uh, you've got control over it. So if you'd rather do it for 6 months or 1 month, whatever it may be, I think that no matter where you are in life, and retirement, for example, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be having goals. Otherwise, the goals will be made for you. You'll be declining because you don't have them. So sit down and determine what those goals are. And I particularly encourage people to start out with the emphasis on the non-negotiable four. Do you have any specific goals in the area of healthy eating? Do you have specific goals relative to owning your body? Um, Through exercise, sleep, meditation, stress management, so on. You have specific goals with respect to uh, your brain health, and do you have specific goals with respect to staying socially connected? Now, you may find that in some areas you may feel perfectly good about where you are at this point and you want to emphasize another area, but I kind of defy you to sit down, look at those four areas and not be able to find goals where you can improve. So that's a first step.
And that's a huge step because you're identifying the problem first.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, a goal is what makes you you. It creates your uniqueness, and it means that you're going to be active rather than passive than in pursuing your life. Now, when you have those goals, then I see the coaching, therapy, do-it-yourself world as kind of a continuum, running from do-it-yourself through some people needing coaching at this point in their lives to some people actually needing psychotherapy, which is what I've spent much of my life doing. Um, Let me give you an example.
Great. Yeah.
Not too many years ago, I checked out my BMI, my body mass index, and found that uh, if I was really honest with myself, I was sitting in the lower part of the overweight range. Now, I could always say, well, if I get on the scale at this hour of the day, I'm actually in the upper part of the average range or whatever it may be, or I had a big meal yesterday, I bet I'll be fine tomorrow. But I didn't want to lead my life playing it that closely. I knew that, better off being, and there have been criticisms of the BMI, but I'd rather be more in the normal part of the normal range. Now, I know about healthy eating, so I didn't need coaching for healthy eating unless I felt that my willpower was such that even though I knew what was right, that I wouldn't be able to do it. That wasn't my issue. But, we do see this with a lot of people who um, take exercise, for example. They know and they've read all the research that indicates how important it is for both physical health and emotional health and for the health of the brain. Uh, but it's hard to get into the habit of doing that on a regular basis. Some Sometimes it's little cold or rainy and you don't want to get out there and take that walk or that jog or go to the gym or something like that. Um, so some people may need that coaching to make them accountable relative to that. Some people may actually find that it's a real problem that no matter what they do, they've read the materials, they've done group programs, they've had coaching. Uh, it may be something that's more of an issue that is for psychotherapy. For example, some people, if somebody was sexually abused and traumatized and so on, he or she may have made themselves uh, almost comfortable with being overweight or
Right.
obese because it would make them unattractive. And then it becomes a therapy issue. So, again, I think if you know what the goal is, you can see where it sits on the continuum from do it yourself to coaching uh, to and do it yourself includes becoming acquainted with sources of information or taking an online class or so on, but do it yourself to coaching to psychotherapy.
Do it yourself. A lot of coaches won't say that. I commend you, Dr. Ron, that you at least because of being a psychologist knows that guess what? You want people to be able to do it themselves after getting advice. That the people that need the extra help just aren't getting over it are the ones that need coaching. Not everyone needs coaching. Most coaches don't say that, Dr. Ron.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a business, so it's understandable. But I think if you're really honest, uh, the way that people function, nobody needs coaching for the same thing throughout their lives. that they may need coaching for different things at various times. But if you've been successful in the coaching, you may um, you may reach a point where you've achieved your goal. Now you may reset your goal at that point and seek additional coaching or a different coach or whatever it may be. But I do think that the goal shouldn't be coaching as much as coaching should be a tool to achieve the goal. So it all starts with the goal. Um,
100%.
there's there's another way that I like to think of it, and again, this is something I'll be glad to discuss with people if you contact me. But I think that if you have your goal clearly in mind, and if you see it as a goal that's being attainable, I want to weigh 10 pounds less. I want to be able to actually do weight training or resistance exercise 3 times a week, and I just can't seem to find the time. Once you have that in mind, then and it's attainable, then I think you have to look at what is the intervention that will make it attainable for you. Will
Yes.
the intervention be, okay, I'm just going to stop eating desserts? Is the intervention going to be, okay, I am going to put my sneakers, my gym clothes right next to the bed, so that the first thing I do is get into those clothes, and there's nothing else I can do in those clothes other than work out, so I better go work out. Is that all the intervention you need? But if the intervention is that I need the help of somebody else to get there, uh, then that's where the coaching, comes in. So I think it's important to, if I can encourage people to do one thing, write down the goal, look at and make it personally meaningful to you, figure out whether it's attainable, and then look at what is the intervention that will make it attainable for you. And in our next podcast or video, I'll kind of tell you how I help people
All right.
uh, to attain their goals. Again, I think that the basic the basic way of looking at it applies to anybody, whether you work with me or not. But next time I'll be glad to tell you some of the specific ways that I can help you reach those goals if it's appropriate for you.
Absolutely. Last thing I would say, as a psychologist, you studied performance. You really focused on performance. A lot of coaches don't understand that performance factor. When you worked with your clients as a psychologist, tell a little bit of experience of performance because that's important in attaining goals.
That's why I've labeled my approach to therapy and to psychology in general, goal achieving psychology or goal achieving psychotherapy. It's the big letters are GAP, and I like to think about that my work with people bridges the gap between thinking about it and doing. I think that performance, I think there are people who go through life with therapy being a way of life for them or coaching being a way of life for them. Those are tools to attain what should be your goals. And I think that's where people have to start with the recognition that they've got the goal, they see it as being attainable. What is the best intervention for attaining it so that you can master, you can perform at the level that you're thinking about? And now let's do it.
All right. That was growing older with enthusiasm. Appreciate it, Dr. Ron. Take care.
Thank you. You too.